When Janet takes her dog for a run on the outskirts of Berlin, she often sees disabled people in the park. Recently, she's gotten to know some of them. This Center for the Disabled has provided a home to deaf-blind people for more than 100 years. A century ago, it was far out of town. Today, it's in the midst of a prosperous suburb. Janet visits Oberlin House to find out more about her new friends, who can neither see nor hear.
Centers like Oberlin House are generally built on the fringes of cities. And originally, that's where we were, at the back of beyond, you might say. But Babelsberg has grown up around us, and now we're in the midst of a suburb. We're served by trams and trains and can get into town very quickly. So we confront society. Of course, we protect our people within a specific space. But we also empower them to live their own lives, for instance, by giving them access to a lot of normal things.
Normal things means, in this case, a structured life and security. Discovering that they're not alone in a world in which their sight and hearing are impaired. For almost 140 years, Oberlin House has been a place where people in need received support and assistance. This Christian service was started by Jean-Frédéric Oberlin, a Lutheran pastor in a poor village on the Franco-German border. There he organized childcare, nursing, and vocational training. Following Oberlin's example, the Lutheran Church established a home for the disabled on the outskirts of Berlin, Oberlin House. The aim was to help the crippled, as physically disabled people were called back then, stand on their own feet. On January 14, 1887, a young girl from Berlin came to Oberlin House, a child who could neither see nor hear. The deaconesses had never encountered anyone with both disabilities. At first, it was almost impossible to communicate. But Hertha Schulz became the first deaf-blind child in Germany to be cared for and given therapy. Many others would soon follow. By 1912, the original building had become too small. More and more disabled people were seeking professional help here. The center gained a reputation for excellence, the deaconesses providing care around the clock. With therapy, the deaf-blind residents made striking progress. They learned skills and became more independent. When this film was shot in 1926, Hertha Schulz had been living here for 40 years. She had learned sign language and Braille, managed household chores and handicrafts, and built up a collection of small porcelain figures and dolls. Working with deaf-blind people soon became one of the core activities at Oberlin House. Until the 1950s, it was the only institution of its kind in Germany.
Guten Morgen, ein neuer Tag beginnt.
After this cheerful start, little Tonja's day begins with sensory perception exercises.
Guten Morgen.
Janet visits the group of preschoolers to which Tonja belongs during a therapy session aimed at stimulating her senses.
Tonja, wir haben Besuch.
Sie sind Frau Berg.
Genau.
Hallo,
Das ist die Tonja.
This is Tonya.
Hallo Tonja.
Und die Tonja,
And Tonya wants the vibration cushion.
das Vibrationskissen haben. Da gehen wir jetzt hin. Spürst du die
Do
Vibration?
you feel the vibration?
The education is organized in a cozy environment and in close cooperation with the parents, both in the daycare center and here in the therapy section.
Mal aufmachen.
Ein gesundes Kind.
Healthy children start learning immediately after birth. Parents talk to their children. But that's no use to a deaf child.
The parents have to communicate differently, and they have to learn how to do that. As soon as it becomes clear that a child's hearing or sight is impaired, special training should start as soon as possible.
Guten Morgen. Hallo Niki. Guten Morgen. Na?
Nick's mother brings him to the educational group every day. He has charge syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that can affect various parts of the body, but especially eyes and ears.
Nick is making lots of progress because of the therapy, and that's always encouraging.
Das gibt noch mal so neuen Mut.
With early educational intervention, Nick can grow up to be relatively independent in spite of his severe disability.
I think when Nick becomes an adult, it'll be important that he's among people like himself and is well cared for. And because Oberlin House is so close to where we live, it will be our first choice. We know what it's like here.
Other children?
No, Nick is our first, but hopefully not our last.
Meanwhile, Tonya is training her sense of touch with special exercises.
Hold your head up. Yes. That's fun, isn't it? Look here. You can look at it with your hands. Your hands can also see. Yes.
Warte. Das Wasser, das Wasser, das Wasser. Hey Tonja, ich weiß, das ist dein Lieblingslied. Du hast so einen tollen Jauchzer gemacht.
First graders starting school. Conveniently, there's a school on the Oberlin House grounds. The second graders put on a concert for the newbies. Hoch am Himmel, hoch, ganz hoch, wir können nach den Sternen greifen. Hoch am Himmel, hoch, ganz hoch. The parents play an active role in their children's education. And, as at any other German school, there are presents on the first day. At school, Tonya will become part of a community and will make friends. But her parents, who have helped shoulder her disability since birth, will remain the most important people in her life.
The first 2 or 3 days she was home, we thought, it'll be a perfect family. A son, a daughter, the wedding. But then everything changed dramatically. She stopped feeding and had to be admitted to the intensive care unit at the children's hospital. And they discovered pretty soon that she was severely disabled. She had convulsions. Just imagine a typhoon raging through your head, destroying everything. The house collapses. And then little by little, you start to build up everything again. But if you're unlucky, and that happened to her, the next storm strikes and tears everything down again. So the mopping up operations in your head are just very tiny steps. We're just happy that we're slowly finding our feet as a family, that Tonya has found a spot where she belongs, but also that she knows she has her place at home, and that will be for as long as she lives.
Tonya still has to get used to her new environment. School, in this context, means further training of the senses, learning to feel and experience. Today, while the other children are in group therapy, Tonya has the class teacher all to herself.
Ein Kind, was geboren wurde, das erleben wir heute nicht mehr, aber bei unseren Erwachsenen erleben wir das schon auch immer noch.
Children who are born and brought up in a hospital or an institution with little or no contact with their families and with the main caregiver constantly changing have very little confidence in life.
häufig gewechselt. Da ist das Vertrauen ins eigene Leben deutlich reduzierter.
They're much less inclined to form relationships with others.
Ist auch deutlich reduzierter.
That was never the case at Oberlin-Haus. Disabled children were given an intense education and they learned together. They had personal contact with the deaconesses and with other disabled children. Community was important in every sphere.
Es ist ganz wichtig, dass ich auch jemanden habe.
It's very important that somebody understands me, but it's just as important to have somebody who's fond of me. It's important for all of us. And for the children, of course, it's tremendously important to have people in their lives who love, accept, and appreciate them, who say to them, you are important, you are okay the way you are. All of us need social recognition.
Wir alle auch auf gesellschaftliche Anerkennung angewiesen.
On the first day of school, the children are still thinking about their holidays, which most of them spent with their parents or caregivers.
What good experiences did you have during the holidays?
In a game, each of the children relates in his or her way what they experienced. The children are at various levels of development. That's why they're often taught individually. But great emphasis is placed on them having contact with each other and on mutual assistance. Holiday memories are grasped, felt, or painted. Sensory perception and communication are learned using various methods and techniques.
I'll check now to see if a sound comes out.
Ob da ein Ton rauskommt.
In cooperation with research institutes and with company sponsoring, the Lutheran Church was able to set up this modern acoustic laboratory. It enables staff to make a more accurate assessment of hearing capability, volume, pitch, and directional hearing.
Vielleicht ist jetzt wirklich abgelenkt gewesen. Super gehört.
Deafness is defined as more than 80% hearing loss. Modern medical technology can help compensate for this disability. Other forms of therapy involve less technical expertise. Janet's curiosity was aroused by the friendly encounter in the park. Her visit to Oberlin-Haus coincides with a visit by 2 dogs. Playing with the animals is not just fun, it increases physical confidence.
Als Mitarbeiterin hier muss man bereit sein, auch
Caregivers have to be prepared for a lot of physical proximity in their work, because it functions by means of clear physical signals. People who have been deaf-blind since birth need somebody to be close to them. They can't communicate over a distance. For instance, I could now talk to 200 people and they would all hear me. Even if they were deaf, I could communicate with them in sign language. But deaf-blind people need me to be directly in front of them. I need my own hands and the hands of my partner and other parts of the body to communicate.
Sign language is a lifeline for deaf-blind people. And this is how it works. Today, even the severely disabled are encouraged to do a lot of things for themselves. Mr. Wolf explains that he would like to show the visitor his room.
Shall we go?
Okay, ja.
Mr. Wolf suffers from Usher syndrome and was born deaf. Later, he began to lose his sight. Now he's partially blind. But in contrast to people who are born deaf-blind, he's able to use the alphabet to communicate.
A fuse.
Ja.
Mr. Wolf is thrilled that Janet understands what he's written. Mr. Wolf's neighbor, Mr. Zippler, has been here for 50 years. In spite of being partially blind and deaf, he loves drawing, which he does with passion and skill. He draws from memory, things he once saw or things described to him. Over the past few years, he's painted hundreds of pictures.
I think it's important to emphasize that people with this disability can live very contentedly, that there's a lot of activity in the home, that it's not just a place where people are dumped.
Throughout the day, a wide range of sensory experiences are shared. Water provides a very special experience. Swimming is an important aspect of life at Oberlin House. Most disabled people love the feeling of floating on water. And Janet realizes that here too, in the pool, trust is very important.
We have many children and adults who love the water. They become completely different people, extroverted or completely relaxed. The experience of being in the water is generally very, very positive.
Janet is impressed by the range of therapy this institution offers. The following morning, she visits the Aktiva workshops in nearby Potsdam. These are also run by the Lutheran deaconesses. The workshops provide various forms of employment for disabled people, including those who are deaf-blind. Mr. Wolf also works here. His beautiful rattan chairs are in high demand, and commissions keep him busy. Along with broom making and fabric weaving, wickerwork has been a typical activity of blind people for generations. Exceptional finger skill compensates for the lack of vision. The workshop has been looking forward to Janet's visit. She wants to visit Mr. Wolf at work, and it so happens that he's just finishing a chair. Communication takes place with a sign language called LORM. Mr. Wolf responds to show that he's understood. He's being told that Janet is happy to be visiting him at work and he says he's also happy.
One sign sometimes means a whole word, or even half a sentence. But you need the manual alphabet to spell my name. Deaf people have simple signs to refer to each other, but if I'm introduced to them, we have to use the manual alphabet. There's a specific finger position for each letter of the alphabet, which enables me to speak into the other person's hand.
Lorm is learned using a practice glove. The tactile alphabet was invented in the 19th century by the deaf-blind novelist Hieronymus Lorm. It was taught from the beginning at Oberlin House. Just like today, there were regular breaks and working hours, and the same sense of satisfaction at the end of the day. The bus ride home is also fun, even if everyone's already thinking about supper. Community meals are an important activity, marking the end of the working day for carers and residents.
I enjoy the work. I try to communicate my own experience of life. I'm very active, and I want to communicate that. We take part in lots of events and we travel. Life is not depressing, it's full of fun, which comes from the residents themselves.
Most of the staff consciously chose this profession. They knew where they wanted to work. They did internships during their training and decided, that's what I want to do. I enjoy the work. We have a lot of laughs. We're not serious all the time. We work with people who have a hard struggle in life, but it's lively here.
In the music group, for instance, everybody participates as best they can. Listening here means using your whole body. It's not the sound that matters, but that everybody participates. Then Gerard surprises everyone with a spontaneous solo. Next, Janet plays Zina a visit. Zina shares a room with another young woman in a block of 3 residential units. She shows Janet the photos with which she's decorated her walls. The residential units are a home away from home, and the youngsters regularly receive visits from their families here. Zina takes Janet to the recreation room. Their gatherings take place regularly to foster a community spirit. Janet knows some of the others already. Gerard, the drummer, for instance, who's just finished school. Most of the kids are sad that their vacation is over.
What did you enjoy at school?
Theater on Mondays.
Zina says reading and writing. Gerard, on the other hand, tells the group he likes sleeping. He's just turned 18. Although his sight and hearing are severely impaired, he has the same interests as any other young man. He shows Janet his favorite video game, motor racing. Gerard wants to impress Janet. Then he offers to buy her an ice cream. Gerard is on the threshold of adulthood. He's learned to deal with his disability and cope on his own. And he'll soon move into his own apartment and lead a perfectly normal life.